Okay, hello and welcome to Chile Talks. Today we are with Jose Manuel Edwards. He's a political leader here in Chile, director executive at the newly founded Ideas Republicanas in Chile, a think tank. Jose Manuel Edwards, they call you Rojo. What's your official name?
Jose Manuel Rojo Edwards.
Rojo Edwards, okay. Rojo means red in English. So Rojo was a congressman in the south of Chile, and he graduated from the Harvard Kennedy School. And he's today here to tell us about what is happening in Chile. There's been a lot of noise out there in the mainstream media about human rights violations, for example. So what's your take on this?
Well, first, Alejandro, thanks for inviting me, and a warm welcome to all the people that are watching us. First of all, you might be wondering what the hell is going on in Chile. Chile is the richest country by far in Latin America. We have a per capita income of $25,000. And also, we have become way more equal than what we were in back in the 90s. So equality has been going down steeply during the last 3 decades. So it's kind of hard to understand what's going on. But if you see our history, you can see that we have faced in many occasions social unrest as the one that we're seeing today. We saw it during the last century 3 times. Mm-hmm. Also with things related to public transport. We had a revolution in 1891, a couple of more during the during the 80s and 1800s, and also we have 1973 when Pinochet took power. So this is something that has happened in Chile. But I think the difference now is that we have a country that is functioning. People are relatively happy, at least that's what the polls say or suggest. But what happened, in my take, is that the growth rate that we were facing in terms of not only in GDP per capita, but also the salaries that the people were getting, was steeply rising for a long time. But after the reforms that we faced during the last government under Mrs. Bachelet, the growth rate of the salaries completely got stuck. And the country where we used to grow twice as fast as the world. Right. Now we're growing less than the world.
Well, the last number was like 2% or something.
Exactly, 2%, 1.7. That's the average under Mrs. Bachelet rule. And we used to grow, for example, if the world would grow at 3%, we'll grow at 6%. And now and basically people got accustomed to increase their level of expectations of what they can do with the money. And the life that they foresee for their kids. Now we have a generation of youngsters that went to college while their parents did not go to college. But with all the reforms of Mrs. Bachelet 4 years ago, that growth came to a halt. And also, inequality grew for the first time in like 30 years. So basically, the expectations were not met. So we have a middle class, and this is to finish, that is highly in debt and cannot foresee a future as we used to be able to foresee decades ago. That's one of the things I think that explains what's going on. But the reason is not basically in the income that we're having, because we're better off than we ever have been.
Exactly. So you mentioned the reforms that Bachelet did that ended up in lower growth rate. You're talking about the tax reform and educational reform, right?
And also labor reform. And that's very important because what's going on during the last 7 years, if you see the income brackets, the high income bracket and the low income bracket, the workforce that belongs to the lowest income bracket, they have 18% less of contracts with Social Security, whereas the first income bracket have 13% more of contracts with Social Security. So not only Bachelet made a halt, the growth came to a halt, and also inequality rose, but also those who belong to the lowest income bracket are facing a situation where they are very much more vulnerable to whatever that can happen to them because they don't have a contract. They don't have anybody that's going to pay a couple of months in case you lose your job, and then you are back in the street. So people are more fearful of what can happen to them, and I think that's mainly because the expectations were not met because of the reforms that we face with Mrs. Bachelet. But also, it's very important, Alejandro, to note that this is not only about people marching and demanding things, but also about organization, probably with aid coming from abroad. Let me give you an example. 78 metro stations of Santiago were completely destroyed. 677 supermarkets were completely emptied out and looted.
24% of Chilean supermarkets.
Exactly, 24% of... And let me tell you something. No Chilean is going to burn our metro system. And I'm going to tell you why. Because we believe that our metro is the best in the world, the cleanest in the world, the most reliable in the world. Our metro, that's how people from Santiago think at least, is better than that of Paris, London, or New York. So don't tell me, it's impossible, it just doesn't, it can't be true that a spontaneous mass came to 78 metro stations and burned them. And not only they burned 600 and, well, they didn't burn 677, they just looted and emptied out 677 supermarkets. But also many pharmacies were looted, banks. I think that the vast majority of small and medium-sized enterprises are gonna go bankrupt because of what's going on, because there has been an attack, and it's an organized attack. Let me tell you, if you wanna disrupt the normal functioning of a city, the first thing you do is you screw, excuse my French, you screw the public transportation. And then they went after the supermarkets because they wanted to cut the supply chain of the people, of what the people need to buy. And also, when President Piñera declared the emergency state, they had to, they get the military, and half or a large percentage of military, they had to put them to guard all the water facilities and electricity facilities, because they knew that after disrupting the public transport, they were going to go after the supply chain, and then after the water, and then after the energy, and specifically light, because we had a problem with the gasoline very early on in what's going on. So this is not just normal people. This is coordination, and there's I don't know if terrorist is the right word, or anarchist, I don't know, but something is going on, and it's highly organized. I want to ask you something, Alejandro, and that whoever is watching us, how the hell can you set on fire something that is not flammable as a metro station?
You need special material.
Exactly. And you know what? The modus operandi of these people, they had big drills with big, like, bits. So they had to make holes in the walls, big holes, and then they put the gas or whatever they were using, and they burned the walls from the inside out. That's how they do it. And in terms of the supermarkets, you had these people in SUV full of I don't know, large tools. They would open the supermarket. They would call people around, "Hey guys, come here, get the free stuff." And then after that, after everything was looted, some people came and burned the supermarket. And that's why out of the 18 people that have died, 13 were dead, burned inside supermarkets that were on the process of being emptied out. And that's why when they say there has been like a huge, massive violation of human rights, I don't think so, because the vast majority of the people that have had problems, they had it with the violentist people that were burning out and setting on fire all these supermarkets, and that's why so many people died. And also 18 for what's going on is not a number that strikes me as something that you can trace back in a policy from the government to systematically violate human rights. That is not the case.
Of course not. But that's not how the mainstream media outside of Chile has been looking at it. I mean, there's a lot of noise about human rights violation, but that's part of the strategy of coordinated attack in some way. To weaken the institutions and especially the police and military institutions through these human rights issues. And there has been some questioning also about the institutes, the Human Rights Institute in Chile.
Yeah.
That has been a little bit partial in terms of, and biased in terms of reporting the human rights.
And it's interesting when the President Piñera, I don't think he has done a good job to start with, but he declared state of emergency, and after one day they declare a curfew. The interesting thing is that they declared the curfew, for example, at 10 p.m. and there were many people outside at 10 p.m. and nothing happened at 10 p.m. The military came out and people were supposed to be at their homes, and they were literally laughing at the military because they know they can't do anything, because anything they do, even if they break a nail of a protester, they're going to go to jail, and then they're going to be accused from human rights violation. And there are certain images that are amazing. There's a place called Plaza Nuñoa, which is a upper middle class place where a lot of youngsters go there, have fun, have a drink, smoke pot or whatever. And they were having a party, a techno rave party. I'm not an expert on this, but some kind of a party, and the party continued. And they had all the military with a curfew. So the reality is not what is being shown in the mainstream media, and that's why many of us are not happy with the kind of coverage that they had. Because basically what they're showing is like a massive human rights violation, and there's nothing that points in that direction. If you see every single day, every single city with curfew, you have people at that time, and nobody really cares. And besides, there are thousands of cops and military that are also under medical examination because they were attacked. So don't get me wrong. We have to investigate all these cases because there might have been something, but there is no systematic policy from the government towards this. If I may say something about the current government, is that they've been extremely weak because they debilitate, I don't know how to say, they weaken the authority that the police can have in order to be able to control the situation from long time. We've been doing this in Chile. If you speed a cop, nothing will happen to you. If you hit a cop, nothing will happen to you. You can do whatever you want and nothing's going to happen. And in this case, with this government fired 40 generals of the police. So the police knows exactly anything happens, they're going to go to jail, they're going to lose their career, they're going to lose their lifelong pension just because they made a mistake. So that's the problem we have. We have no authority, and that's why we have so far 2 weeks of social unrest with no clear reasons, because that's the truth. Although there's a lot of inequality, there's a lot of problems, there are no clear reasons for this, and we still have social unrest. And that is not broadcast by the mainstream media, and it has to be said. Exactly.
About the weakening of the institutions and the police and the military, I think that started in your district, in the Araucania, because there were many terrorist attacks especially during the Bachelet period.
Well, to tell you the truth, the terrorist attack has gone up since 1997 with every single government. And with this government, we have faced more terrorist attacks than any time before. So it's a problem of a failing state. Every day, and this is not a metaphor, every day there's an attack in Araucania. And during the whole year, for example this year, nobody sentenced to jail because of attacks that happen every single day. In Araucania, the region that I used to represent, during the 8 years that I was a representative there, more than 10,000 attacks happened.
So those are trucks that are burned?
Exactly. Many trucks burned, many small farmers that they lost everything. In La Araucanía, you can't get your crops out and put them in a truck without paying for a toll to a group of terrorists. It's impossible. You can't. There are certain rivers, and you have fisheries in some rivers. You can't get the fish out without paying for a toll. There's nothing you can do without paying these terrorists. And there are certain areas in La Araucanía that the state cannot go inside. The Mucuicuy, for example, we couldn't count them in the census because they didn't allow us to go in. The people from the Ministry of Agriculture cannot go inside. They can pay because they're getting paid every day from the government. And this is amazing. They're getting paid from the government, but the state cannot go inside. So basically,
subsidies
exactly,
and so on.
and they're all hired. This is incredible because all these people that live in this place with no law, they are hired by the government and they have to work within the boundaries of their community. And nobody can go and check whether they are doing whatever they were supposed to do. But doesn't matter. The problem here is that I don't know what's the word of when a crime is committed and nobody is sentenced to jails. Impunidad. That's a word in Spanish. I'm not going to say impunity because I might get it wrong. Huh? But the truth is that whatever a terrorist does or undertakes, they are not paying because of those crimes committed. And this is exactly what's going on here. They burn more than 30 stations, metro stations, and they destroy more than 77. And there's only one person that might be guilty. Come on. To do that, you need 100 person at least, or 200. And where are they? 677 supermarkets looted. And who's in jail and who's in trial? Nobody. So in Chile, the truth is that you can commit a crime and get away with it. And that's the problem, and that's what's going on, and that's why the press is doing is so bad, because they are focusing 100% of their attention in the bad things that cops and the military could have done, which is true, they could have done bad things. But the other part, they are completely
overlooking
it. It's as if it doesn't happen, as if it didn't happen. And a lot has happened in Chile.
And that's irresponsible from mainstream media, I think, to look at it that way, because all this news gathers support and diffuses ideas, and I think it's irresponsible from them to do this. So yeah, I think weakening of.
And by the way, all the journalists that have conducted these 2 weeks of media, it's been 100% of the time on the TV. You can't watch anything else, and all the TV channels are there. They all have salaries that are at least $30,000 a month. The TV industry is among the most unequal industries in the whole country, and they are talking about inequality. I agree with them. There's a lot of inequality, but they don't have any legitimacy to talk to anybody about inequality. We have to we have to destroy inequality. We have to look for a more equal country. We have to grow. People have to increase their salaries, their well-being. But it cannot be told by somebody that their salaries is at least 20 times mine. No, at least.
Crazy. That's crazy. So, well, this situation has, I think, accelerated the move in the institute that you're leading, right?
Yes.
What are you doing in order to face this situation, and what are your plans looking forward?
Okay, since this has been basically organized by certain groups, and it has been supported by the far right and the Communist Party, basically what now they're doing is they're pushing their agenda, and their agenda is basically to have more control from the state over the private sector, so they can have more benefits, increase and make their salaries a little more secure, and have more privileges. And we don't agree with that agenda. The hashtag that they are using for this is something called Asamblea Constituyente, which is exactly what Venezuela did and Bolivia did. Yep. And they did it so they could stay in power forever through changing the constitution and not even abiding by what the constitution says. They want to change the constitution, grant themselves more power, and then take away our freedom. But we're not gonna put up with that. So we're gonna propose to the country a different agenda that really tries to tackle the problems that people are facing. For example, low salaries, high unemployment rates, low pensions, very difficult access to medicine and health. The health system is,
and of course crime.
People need, and they have the right to live in a safe zone. In Chile, the problem is that normal people are within, the walls of their houses, while the delinquents, roam by freely around the cities, when they should be the ones under, the fence. I mean, inside the fence in Yale, and not the people. I think we have to change that. We're gonna organize, and we're gonna communicate an agenda that really tries to tackle the problems that real people are facing, and not the agenda of Asamblea Constituyente, which is just a way of the left to get more power and hopefully stay there forever and ever.
Right. And you're doing this new program and this proposal with José Antonio Caz. José Antonio
Yes.
Caz was a presidential candidate in 2017. He got a good percentage. I mean, he exceeded expectations. And well, you've been working closely with him too.
Yes.
And José Antonio Caz, I think he's been strengthened after this. I mean, he's the only one that has been putting some common sense in the debate.
Exactly, because as you can see from many people in the center left and center right, in order to go forward, to have a social agenda, you need order and peace. If we don't have peace, whatever you do is gonna be undertaken with a gun in your head, which is not the way to go forward. So that makes sense. And since the current government, Mr. Piñera, has been extremely weak in order to provide peace and order, in order to be able to go forward, clearly those who want freedom, who defend family, liberty, who defend the republic, law-abiding people, are probably going to go and support José Antonio Caz, because it's the real option that we have now under a current regime or government of President Piñera that has a support that is very minuscule, 10-15%, not more than that, because he hasn't been able to provide at least order and security, and to have a clear agenda. And what he's doing now is basically swallowing the agenda from the far left, which is not the agenda of the people. If you ask the 1 million people that went on last Friday to Plaza Italia in Chile, they're going to tell you what they need. They don't say they need a new constitution. Come on. They need better quality of life, better health, better education, better pensions, better salary, better treatment, more dignity, more security. That's what they need. And we want to create an agenda in that with that direction.
That's great. Well, we wish you a lot of luck in this adventure that you're undertaking. Is there anything else you want to tell our?
Yes, I want to tell those who are watching that Chile, we have grown under adversity. This is a country full of earthquakes. In fact, while we were taking this shot, there was a little earthquake.
Oh.
I'm not sure if you noticed it.
Really?
Yes, but there was a little earthquake. We have many natural disasters. We've had many revolutions, but we come back again and we stand up. And Chile will do it again, and we will bounce back even stronger than we were before. So Chile is a good place, and we're going to recover from all the difficulties that we're facing. But Chile is going to go back to be the lighting
in South America.
Beacon of light. I don't know.
Lighthouse.
the beacon of light of Latin America very soon. Okay. Thank you, Alejandro.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.